Hello, and welcome to the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker. This podcast will show you how to achieve FI through entrepreneurial pursuits by developing a well-calibrated and thought-out plan for risk management so that you can maximize the rewards.
Hosted by certified financial planner, enrolled agent, and serial entrepreneur, Ben Martinek, this is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker.
The information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of the content is presented as investment advice. Consult your financial professional before acting on any of the information presented in this show. Well, welcome everyone. It's good to have you here. My name is Ben Martinek, and this is my lovely bride, Deb Martinek. Deb.
Hello, good to see you.
Yes, it's good to be here, isn't it? So this is our very first episode, and what we'd like to do is introduce ourselves, I think is customary within a beginning of a podcast, let you get to know about us a little bit. And so we'd like to start with talking about how Deb and I met. How did we meet, honey?
We are the first people that either of us remember meeting when we began our first day of graduate school. Ben was focusing on studies in a graduate level in philosophy, and I was studying my graduate level degree in theology. And with all of the, thousands of people on campus, we happened to sit next to each other, and we truly are the first people we ever remember meeting on that fateful day, August 2005.
Yeah, 2005 is getting to be a long time ago. Apparently, I had been living in the South for a little while and had a touch of a Kentucky accent, if you'd believe it. My wife was attracted to me at that very moment. Although the Kentucky accent, I'm told, has not stuck around.
But you'll come to find that we have quite the North Dakota accent, so that's fun.
Yeah, that's where we live now. So what about our family? I hail from the great state of Indiana. Deb hails from the great state of Ohio. How do you do that dance?
O-H-I-O. Let's go, Buckeyes, go.
She's a Buckeye, if you can tell. And we grew up in the rural parts of both of the states, came from simple families and backgrounds, I believe, but good roots, good values, good people, lots of good experience. So we had kind of a fun story as we came out of grad school, in which we had gone to a private school and racked up quite a bit of student loan debt. Deb has a degree in theology. I have one in philosophy. At least that was initially. I like to joke that we're a filthy couple.
I hate that joke, for the record.
Filthy. So philosophy, theology, if you get it. Haha. And we were a filthy couple with a lot of student loan debt when we first got married. And I had been studying some business and finance alongside philosophy studies at that point in time. It was only introduced to me by another classmate who had been running a business before pursuing the fine art of philosophy. And he had asked, if I had any business interest. But I was working with a classmate of mine who had some business pursuits at that time. And he got me introduced into finance, specifically Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Real estate investing was all the craze. This was pre-2007, 2008, right before the great financial crisis. You couldn't go wrong investing in real estate, right? Certainly very aware of that. Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki got me introduced into some different principles ultimately on how to start to make money in business. And, as we were facing this looming question of what to do with all our student loan debt, we came up with this great idea that has been very influential in both of our lives of driving truck together as team truck drivers.
That's right. You heard him right. We became over-the-road team truck drivers early on in our marriage. I had suggested it once, just kind of in passing in jest on the phone when this was before we were married, that, hey, why don't we become truck drivers? I come from a long line of truck drivers. Virtually every male on my dad's side of the family has their CDL. And so it just seemed natural as an option to pursue. It felt like it would connect me to my roots a little bit. And little did I know that Ben had a bit of a fascination with large trucks like that. And so he took it upon himself to research into the possibility of becoming truck drivers. And we found out that it was rather lucrative, I'll say, as a husband and wife, or as a team in general, to be able to drive truck. And so we thought that this would be a great way for us to see the country, to pay off our student loan debt. We had, between our student loan debt and consumer debt, a car loan, et cetera, around $150,000, $160,000 in debt. And our job prospects, imagine this, in philosophy and theology, were not very high, nor with good pay opportunities. And so we decided to make a go of it. Shortly after we were married, we started truck driving school and did that for 2.5 years.
We did, yes, right at the height of the great financial crisis, too, no less. So it actually, we had troubles early on, even just finding work and getting a job. Quite the stories. I'm sure we'll interweave truck driving in this a lot because people tend to have a lot of questions about that. Over 600,000 miles together between the two of us. So we did a lot of driving. Super fun. Moving on beyond this, that was our really big first step of some entrepreneurism in our marriage, for sure. It was a big risk, unknown, very adventuresome. We've continued on with that, ultimately relocating of all places in Bismarck, North Dakota. Not
That's
expected.
Right. We live in Bismarck, North Dakota. Yeah. Oh, for cute.
Yeah, you betcha. Yeah. So
that's Minnesota, honey.
Oh, okay. Thank you, dear. Yeah. You may pick up a bit of an accent from time to time, but yep. Came here from the lower Midwest. Now what is the lower Midwest to us? We've been here for about 10 years. Only came out this way through the oil patch, the oil boom. It's been super fun, good times. Love Bismarck. Would stay here forever, or we plan to, yes. So why don't we talk a little bit about your work, Deb? What do you do?
Sure. So as mentioned, I did get my master's degree in theology with a specialization in catechetics. And so it's always been a desire and a dream of mine to be able to work for the church in some way. And providentially, I was able to secure a position at our local parish when we moved here to Bismarck. And so I've been doing that for the last almost decade. Just a great desire and passion of mine to be able to work with people in that capacity. Along the way in that journey, though, I also discovered another passion, which was learning how to chart my own cycle and then therefore how to teach other women and couples to chart their cycle. I work with the fertility care world, and it's been a great adventure in that. And so I've branched off and am continuing that entrepreneurial pursuit in what I hope to become a national program that is available for couples to learn in a more streamlined approach. And I also joined forces with Ben here. We launched a financial planning firm where Ben is the certified financial planner and owner, operator, CEO of this endeavor. And I started working for the business about a year and a half ago in the spring of 2020, before COVID hit, actually. Began working for the business and walking our prospects through the process to become a client of our business. And so it's been great fun to have hands in a lot of different pots and just pursuing different adventures. Like our truck driving was the first unconventional thing that we did, but I think our whole lives have kind of built up to that. And we've just ran with it ever since then. Truck driving is very unconventional, especially for a young married couple with advanced degrees. Most folks out in that realm, maybe, they've graduated from high school. We decided to do that. We finished our master's degrees while on the road, and it's just been a great adventure ever since. So that's where we get the serial entrepreneurship endeavors that both Ben and I have.
Well, as we were getting the business off the ground, which is, by the way, bona fide finance, bona fide, as you might say it in Anglo, but we pronounce it bona fide in Latin because I have a Latin background. So bona fide finance, which is finance in good faith for your translation, or bona fide finance. We started that a number of years ago, but it was a long time endeavor. And so I continued to drive truck up here locally as a way to figure out how to do both activities at once. One of the challenges that we'll discuss, I think, in this show at length is how do you get a business off the ground while still bringing money home? Because businesses are a lot like small children or babies. They're very needy and they need a lot of time and effort, and they don't really provide much in return, especially in terms of personal income. Depending on your situation, you may still need money coming in. How are you going to fund that or provide that for yourself while we give this entrepreneurial activity an attempt to grow? So I had to continue driving truck while we were getting bona fide off the ground. Very fun. I drove personally, individually, another 100,000 to 200,000 miles here in the local region, hauling freight while doing the business. But we got bona fide started, and then I suppose a few years in, got introduced into some tax work with another accounting firm, but I had my hand in helping them get started. More in that I was just hard, just the labor.
Sweat equity.
Yeah, well, I don't know if there was so much equity in the deal, but it was an opportunity. I got trained, I got experience, as they say, right? That was my compensation, but did a few years of work for them, and then ultimately stumbled into a niche, a realization of how filing your taxes impacts your student loan repayment and the different student loan repayment strategies that are out there, and came up with the idea of starting Student Loan Tax Experts, a tax business focused on filing your taxes in light of your student loan repayment to optimize that situation. So very busy with that endeavor as well. And then I suppose lastly, just because maybe, two things on your plate isn't enough, I was involved or introduced, asked to be part of the founding of another network called Catholic Financial Planners Network. Through some of my public appearances on other podcasts, other Catholics asked us to come out and see what we could do to make more of a name of ourselves within the financial planning community. So here we are, 3 different business activities. Certainly bona fide and student loan tax experts takes up the bulk of my time, but I do spend some time with CFPN, Catholic Financial Planners Network. But, I think there's one last thing. If you'd believe it, we have done one other thing that's a little bit crazy and was also a means by which how we got our businesses off the ground, which, this unconventionality will probably be a theme in our podcast because it was really instrumental for us in getting things moving ahead. I think it's instrumental probably for others. What's the other crazy thing that we've done, Deb?
We bought our house around 9 years ago in December of 2012. And from the immediate get-go, we started renting out rooms in our home to other young adults in our community. We didn't have children yet at that time. Those came a number of years later. But we wanted a house because we felt it was ridiculous to spend as much rent money as we did per month without having that invested in something that was longer term. And so we bought this house, but it was a lot more space than what we needed. And so we decided to seek out other individuals that might be looking for a place to live. This was also when the market was really high and hot here in the local area. And so it was difficult to find an apartment, let alone, even just a room or a studio to rent. And so we began renting out rooms in our house. And over the last 9 years that we've owned our home, we've had 17 individuals live with us from a period as short of 3 months to a period as long as 4 years. Shout out to Sloan for living with us for 4 years. And it's just been a beautiful gift to have them live with us and to share community with them, but also to be able to use our house as a vehicle for an extra stream of income, which helped make a lot of these endeavors possible. Actually, when you don't actually have a mortgage payment because your renters are paying for it, it makes life a lot easier. And so that's one of the mainstays that we've had even before we launched the financial planning business, was having renters in our home.
Yeah, thank you, Robert Kiyosaki. How can we turn this asset into truly an asset? Because by having it produce income for you, certainly his influence was there as we were thinking of ways to make that happen with acquiring our home. So maybe as an FYI, we did know or have some sort of prior contact to all the people who lived with us. This wasn't just an open invitation to the public.
It wasn't like a permanent Airbnb. No, we kind of did interviews and knew people who knew people and got introduced that way. So it was a very carefully sought out renting opportunity for those that did live with us, especially considering our own health and safety when we have children.
Yeah, for sure. There isn't a separate apartment, so they quite literally do live with us. There is a separation, but we're upstairs, they're downstairs. But yes, we're all part of one household. So some care was needed there, but it's worked out really fabulously well. I mean, if you'd believe it, we've probably generated over 6 figures in rental revenue from this activity in the last decade, which has had a big impact in us just making all of this work. So just yet another experience or episode of entrepreneurism between the two of us. So moving on then, let's just talk about what do we want this show to be about and why are we the FI entrepreneur? Again, FI being financial independence, but not the FIRE entrepreneur. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, FIRE, financial independence, retire early. We've purposely, and I think as a whole, this movement is moving away from this too, we've purposely dropped out the RE, retire early. We're really focusing on financial independence and want to continue to do so in this podcast. Ultimately, financial independence is about having, it's connected to retirement. It's about making work optional for oneself. I think that's how you best capture the notion of financial independence, not being obliged to work, to maybe reduce how much you have to work rather than a 40 or 50 or 60 hour a week job and its commitments and its stresses, reducing you down to 10 or 20 or 30 hours, and maybe more meaningful work that perhaps doesn't pay as much or pay as well, but not necessarily needing that income to support yourself. What is financial independence? I think that'll be a theme we'll pursue. What is entrepreneurism? And perhaps how do the two of these come together really well in how is entrepreneurism the best means in our take in actually achieving financial independence? And how can we help you actually make that happen? And having you start your own business and run your own business to be the best means of crafting out a little niche for yourself in life that allows you to have the best of both worlds, income that you love, a business that you love, but also a lifestyle and a family balance that you love as well.
With entrepreneurship, we do believe that this is the best path and the best way to be able to achieve that financial independence, or FI. We'd rather invest in ourselves and in our experiences, our education, than to necessarily put our success in the hands of forces outside of our control with a W-2 job or being an employee somewhere with the boss. We'd rather invest in ourselves so that we can make the most of our success based on what we want our trajectory to be. We both are hard workers. We're both from the Midwest. We just have that strong work ethic and want to make the most of what our opportunities have presented before us. And so this is the means by which we have created and established Bonafide Finance as a successful financial planning firm, student loan tax experts as a successful tax planning business for folks who have student loans. The Catholic Financial Planners Network, a fantastic means by which people can find folks like us in the marketplace, renting out rooms in our home, my fertility care work that's hopefully going to be launching on a national level here soon enough. All of these ways in which we've invested in ourselves with our education, our experiences, to be able to put that success on our trajectory moving forward instead of leaving it in the hands of someone else.
Well, and then lastly, the tagline for the podcast is financial planning for the risk taker. What do we mean by that? Ultimately, in order to see any reward, you're going to have to take some risk. The two are internally interlinked. I think intuitively so, we understand and see how that could be the case. But not all risk are compensated risk, as they like to use as a technical term. You can take risks that are uncompensated, which means you don't get anything. There is no reward for taking them. So financial planning for the risk taker really is driving into what are those calculated risks in which we anticipate compensation or a reward for them. It has an expected return for us. And so this endeavor isn't about gambling and just crossing our fingers and hoping that our luck plays in our favor. Although luck, as we'll find out, does have a pretty big impact into all of us as to how things are. It is the question mark in finances. But how do we work or dance with luck to make it do as much for it as we could? I think it's Charlie Munger that there's a famous quote where luck favors the prepared mind, which is to suggest that, yes, there is a degree of luck in our lives, but a lot of the situation of whether or not luck comes to our favor is, have you done the sufficient amount of preparation to make yourself available? Perhaps another great way to express this is for those who hunt deer or who do any hunting, we don't have any control about when the deer shows up, but we do have control about when you're sitting there waiting for the deer to show up. And so we may not be able to handle the control of the timing, but we can handle the control of being in the right place. So we have that expression, right place, right time. Can't control the time, can't control the location. So how can we intentionally grow and take advantage of these risks that we're taking through thoughtful financial planning? That's going to be a common theme in the show.
So who is this podcast for? It's for those who are at the intersection of financial independence and entrepreneurship. You might have achieved financial independence. You may be an entrepreneur. You may be in pursuit of one or the other. Both pursuits, we know from experience, can be a rather lonely place. It's not always well understood or received by the mainstream. So we're here to share our journey with you and to hopefully create a community of like-minded individuals in this pursuit of financial independence and entrepreneurship.
Should be fun. We love people. Folks like to consider us the party type, which is partially true. As much of a party type as you can get down with a couple filthies. So
you might want to know then, how are we different? So we want you to know that we approach our podcast and life and entrepreneurial pursuits through the lens of financial planning and analyzing risk. So we take an emphasis on good risks. We help you learn how to evaluate risks and make the most out of the careful risks that you do take. And what many people see as luck, oh, he or she hit it big, or they're an overnight success, or you have this perception that they just made it happen, is actually usually the result of lots and lots of planning and hard work, sometimes years in the making.
What's your favorite analogy, honey, about the bamboo?
Oh, yes. bamboo take like 5 years, I think it is, or maybe it's even 20 years. I'll have to look up on this for sure.
We might be prone to exaggeration.
Let's just say 5 years then. So 5 years, you plant the bamboo, you tend the ground, you water it, but you don't see anything happening for those 5 years. And then finally, once the ground has been tended well and the root system is in place, the bamboo can shoot up 30, 60, 90 feet in a matter of just days. It's phenomenal growth and progress, but you have to make sure that you're tending the ground and caring for and cultivating the plant very well.
Yeah, personally, I like the hockey stick analogy instead, in which things are flat and nothing. It's just a hockey stick on the ground, kind of, if you can imagine the flat part of the hockey stick handle, and then all of a sudden it shoots up into nowhere with the bow or the turn at the bottom. That is entrepreneurism best expressed. You do a lot of work and don't get anything for it for many years, but then all of a sudden, boom, things start to take off. So, which is very exciting. It's exciting in both elements, but the long stretch of nothing happening can be rather trying and emotionally demanding, which is actually probably the most difficult risk. One of the most difficult aspects of entrepreneurship is managing the emotional volatility that comes into play day after day of doing all this work and not necessarily seeing any of your results come home, materializing and money being produced. You do start to wonder, what the heck am I doing? We'll just dedicate more time to that in future shows, but it is a real, true challenge that if you are an entrepreneur, you already know about it. If you're thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, I hope you get used to it because it is very much going to be part of your life.
So with that, we're going to bring in our own professional and personal experience into this conversation. Again, we've got Bona Fide Finance. You can check us out at bonafidefinance.com. Student loan tax experts. That's studentloantaxexperts.com. A lot of other podcasts focus on the subject matter. They're not necessarily led by credentialed professionals currently practicing the craft of financial planning and entrepreneurship. So what we'd like to do is just create a sense of credibility and trust with the fact that we are credentialed. We've got a lot of experience in this, and we want to be able to share that with you, another hopeful serial entrepreneur focused on financial independence.
Yeah, who can you get to work with who's written a 70-page thesis paper in modern ethics and the intersection of rationality and disorientation? I think that's the best term for capturing what I wrote a decade ago.
Probably nowhere.
Yes, I might be the only masters in philosophy I'll get to work with. Lovely conversations. Maybe we'll intersperse some philosophy in the podcast. But, more of late, my background is CFP, a certified financial planner. I'm also an enrolled agent with the IRS, which is comparable to being a CPA. And I have a designation in student loans. I'm a certified student loan professional, so very aware of different repayment plans. Along with, if you believe it, there is a fourth one, the RICP, the Retirement Income Certified Professional, which focuses on how to turn your nest egg into income and optimize it. So we do have quite a bit of experience both in running our own businesses and the challenges of entrepreneurship, but also the practical aspects of what to do with your money, personal finance, working, with a great group of clients who've taught us a lot over the years as to the questions and difficulties and challenges they have. We hope to use this podcast as a vessel to share some of that information that we've gleaned from the work we've done. And so, I think a big difference between us and maybe other advisors or other podcast hosts is we're actively involved in this business. We're not, as much as we are big do-it-yourselfers. I'm a big fan of do-it-yourselfers. There's a lot of aspects of my life that's a do-it-yourselfer. Sometimes you'll run into these circles, especially in the FI community of do-it-yourselfers, who have the experience of what they've done in their own life, which is quite valuable and worthwhile, and they've got their own accomplishments and achievements. But, they're not working with other people, and there's something to be lost in which, expectations-wise, you can think that what I had worked for me should be able to work for you. Well, I think in our experience, people are very different and varied, and what is going to be a viable strategy for one person isn't going to be the best strategy for someone else, simply because we are different, and what works for one doesn't necessarily work for all. So we're going to hopefully bring in the various stories and experiences we've had from our clientele to help guide you in this pursuit of entrepreneurship.
And we have another co-host, actually. So you're going to be hearing from Ben. He's going to be the mainstay in each episode. And I will be alternating episodes with Ben. And then Andrew Bensavanga, he is our associate advisor with Bona Fide Finance. Also a serial entrepreneur, you'll be meeting him in our next episode. So you'll get to learn a little bit about him, his backstory, what has brought him to this place and point of working in financial planning. And he'll be able to share his insights and experience as well. And we look forward to introducing him to you.
Well, so I think we'll call this first episode here a wrap. Hope you have found this to be insightful as you've learned a little about your host. And Andrew will be coming up on the show next. You'll learn a little bit about him. Great guy. Highly anticipate that episode. You're going to love hearing from Andrew. Fascinating background as well. If you thought ours was varied, his is just as equally varied. Should be fun. Love this subject, love this topic, and love the opportunity to be able to share this with you all.
Thanks for listening. This is the FI Entrepreneur, Financial Planning for the Risk Taker.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've had as much fun as we did. If you'd like to learn more about any of the subjects we spoke about, please visit our website for show notes, links, and more. Hit like, subscribe, or whatever button you've got in front of you to show some love. Remember, the information presented in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only.
Remember what Teddy Roosevelt said about the person who strives greatly. If he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Until next time, keep striving.
Thanks again, and be well.